Perfect. Can you see that? Sorry, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, it's perfect. Thanks.
Okay, so welcome everyone tonight to this evening's webinar. So this is going to be on the Community Climate Action Programme, and it's the webinar itself is going to be on the application element of the programme. So the event itself, or the presentation itself, will only take about 20 minutes to half an hour, and then we'll follow with Q&A session. So we've had previous webinars on the actual Community Climate Action Programme, so I'm not going to go into much detail on it. But there's one thing to note: there's two options available to apply for the Community Climate Action Programme. It's either go through our consult form, and that's basically an online application platform that's hosted on Kerry County Council's website, and that normally deals with a lot of our consultations and other kind of applications, or go through that application. And then the other option is if you require Irish versions of the application forms, you just get in contact with me, and I will send you the Irish versions applications forms. So the deadline itself for the programme is the 6th of March at 5 p.m. So it's basically 6 weeks from this evening. That will be the closing date. So in relation to the application form itself, so once you log on to Consult, you have to register, and basically you just have to fill out your basic details. So it's just your name, your contact details, your email address. Once you have registered with Consult, then you have access to the application forms. So there's two application forms that are currently up there. So there's the Building Low Carbon Communities, and that's the programme that majority of people will be applying for. So that's the fund of 663,000. Now that's Strand 1. Now Strand 1A, Shared Island Communities Climate Action Application Form. That's the strand if you're going to partner with an organisation up north. So let's just say if you have a project that you want to partner with a partner up north, then you apply under that scheme. And for the entire island of Ireland, there's 3 million of a pot for that. So a bit of a flow chart here to kind of detail the kind of ins and outs of the application. There's 5 sections to the application form. So the first section is you're telling us about your organisation. Then the next section is the project details. So there's different sizes you can apply for. So you can apply for a small grant, which is below 20,000. And if you apply for a small grant, you're required to give less detail, so your application will be shorter. And that if you select a small grant application, you'll be brought to the small grant questions. And then if you go for a medium or large scale grant, then you're going to get the medium large scale questions in relation to that. So after that, the next section, section 3 is state aid questionnaire. So you have to answer 3 short questions on that. And section 4 is authorization and statutory consent. That's just a quick yes, no to that. And section 5 is the submit declaration. So you do an online sign and you just fill in your details, and then you submit. And if you miss any questions, you kind of just go back to start and work your way through it again. So with the application itself, as I was saying, there's 5 different sections, and you can see them plotted at the very top when you log on to the application. And at the very bottom of the screen will be your navigation element to it, so you can switch between sections as you fill them out. There's also the save draft element. So one thing, the benefit of working with the consult is you can save as you go along. So you don't have to fill out the application on one sitting. You can go back and upload further information on a later date. So section 1 is basically want to very much basic details about the group. Very briefly describe the type, purpose. What's your focus on? Are you kind of like a women's shed, or what kind of community group you are? We need all those kind of details. When you were established, just basic background to the group itself. We also want to know is what municipality are you based in. So there's a map there. It shows you the different municipalities, and you just fill out which one you're based in. The first kind of question that's going to kind of is going to raise is basically it's going to set out your we want you to set out this governance arrangements for your organization and supporting documents such as terms of references, constitution, AGMs, minutes, and where appropriate. So basically what we're after in this question is we want to you simply tell us how your organization is run, outlining who's involved, who makes decisions, how you manage your finances, your organizational. So just basically a bit of background to the group itself, how you kind of operate. So to give an example, I've two examples of what you could put in there. The first example, we're a local GAA club with a 5-person committee consisting of chairperson X, secretary XXX, and treasurer XXX, liaison officer and general officer. We have specific group bank accounts. We hold AGMs and we've attached our minutes to the application. We have appropriate financial and management structures in place. So that's kind of a given example of what a GAA club would put in. And then another example, we're a registered charity with board number, and then a charity board number, and with a constitution and financial statements available. So that's the kind of stuff we're kind of after in relation to that, the governance section. So after that, you're going to have to fill in some kind of further information about do you have a PPN number? Do you have a charitable status number? And tax reference number? All these, fill them in if they're applicable, if you have them. If you don't have them, just put NA, non-applicable. So that's totally fine. They're not required, but just they're kind of like elements that kind of like would kind of give us further information about the setup of the organization. So another this question up here is please declare if your group can reclaim VAT. So this is a critical enough one, because if you can reclaim VAT, we want to get you to put in your quotes with VAT not included. So, but majority of groups won't be able to reclaim VAT, so they'll be putting in no there. And then the next question is the group a not-for-profit organization? So you say yes or no there. And so the last bit in section 1 is the contact details. So who's going to be the point of contact for the application? So who will be liaising with Kerry County Council in relation to the application? So you just put in your details there at the end, and yeah, that person will be the contact for the duration of the project. So as I was saying in the flow chart, section 1 and section 2. So the sorry, as I was saying in the flow chart in section 2, the first question you're going to ask is what size of a grant you're applying for. So as I was saying, if you are a small grant, you get the small grant questions. If you have a large grant, you get the large grant questions. The questions are quite similar. It's just there's less detail required in the smaller grant questions. So one of the first questions is so the purpose of the grant, relevance of the project. Please describe your project, outline how your project is relevant to the purpose of the grant and helps to shape and build low carbon communities. Outline which of the 5 themes your project will address and how you will address them. You're encouraged to address as many as possible. So kind of what we're after in this is kind of like a clear description of what your project or what your actions will be. The actual works that you're going to carry out, what will be purchased, what members of the community are taking part. If you're doing an energy works on a building, tell us a bit about the building, when it was constructed, current installations, etc. If there's planning or other licensing requirements are needed, state you have them or in the process of getting them. So kind of like a bit background to the project. And then if there's it may be necessary to provide some brief background information or reasons why your project has come, if they're not already obvious. So it's just kind of a bit of context to the project itself. So here's an example of a response to this question, or a part of a response to this question. So like our centre was built in 1995 and installation and doors upgraded 3 years ago. As advised by the energy audit, the gas boiler will now be replaced with an air to water heat pump and a 9 kilowatt solar PV, which will be installed on a south-facing roof. Included is a 6 kilowatt battery. After installation, we are going to organise an energy event with our SEC mentor and KCC climate action team. This event will be for community groups to to ask questions and see what participants and benefits of moving away from fossil fuels and switching to renewables. Our chairperson and treasurer will be managing this from the procurement to installation. So kind of gives it gives a bit of background to the project itself. Another example would be we're planting of a 65-meter native Irish hedge along the southwest section, as recommended by the All Ireland Pollinator Plan. 75% will be white thorn, and the remaining 25% will be made up of crabapple, hawthorn, and wild cherry. One of the coaches will be overseeing this, and the local under-12 team will be assisting with the planting. Signage will be included describing the species and biodiversity advantages to increase awareness amongst the education amongst our members. A maintenance plan will be developed for these trees around cutting and weeding. So yes, that gives you kind of a bit of background or a sample answer to that question. So the next section is just basically they're looking for the location or the air code of where the project's based. So the X or Y coordinates are just the air code. So where the works are going to take part. And so on to the next question. Sorry, I'm going to take a quick drink. So achievability. So this question is, what are the outputs of your project achieve? How will the project be managed and to achieve and measure these outputs? What are the milestones in the projects? Set out details, partnerships, if any, that will be entered to assist you with this project. So what we're doing here is we're trying to, outline how the group will deliver the proposed project. It's very important that we understand your timelines, for implementing the project. So what are the major milestones and how are they going to be monitored and delivered? Summarize your work plan into, as I was saying, into major milestones of the project, and describe information that you needed to collectively regularly. Describe the information you will need to be collected regularly and to know whether your project is both on track and delivering the results you expect. So, and then obviously you talk about what partnerships are you entered on to deliver the project. So give an example of a kind of like a timeline, a proposed timeline. This is just an example. So let's just say, quarter, you were successful. So quarter 4 of 23. Yeah, or sorry, this is just, sorry, the dates on this are they're like from this year, something like that. So obviously the proper dates will be reflecting of that. So quarter 1 of 2023, heat pump will be installed by December. Submit voucher expenses to KCC, which works out about 33% of the grant money. Then quarter 1 24, planting of native Irish trees will be done over 2 weekends in January. Solar PV and battery installed by March. Submitted voucher expenses 55% of the grant money. And then bike parking installed in quarter 2 of 2024. Sewing machines bought at the end of April, and monthly repair hubs running. Monthly repair hubs running the last Saturday of each month. Signage for the hedge be in place by May. Energy and cycle public days in May, June, and then submit voucher expenses for this as part of the KCC, and that would be 12% of the grant. So we just kind of like want to kind of, if at all possible, kind of get a breakdown of a proposed timeline of how the project will be delivered and when you hope to get things installed and developed. So to kind of give an example of what this would look like, or an example of a kind of a response to this answer. So we are community online. We've done a community online survey at the beginning, middle, and end of the 18 months to see how many repair cafes upcycled their clothing and the number of people who cycling to monitor and change behaviour. We all monitored the numbers and attendance at the repair cafes and the number of bikes being parked. If numbers are low, do not increase. We'll run a communication blitz. We'll work with KCC to run workshops for the public on these topics. There's one example. Another example, to deliver the project, we're entering a partnership with XYZ. After the energy projects are done, we're going to get an estimation of the carbon savings from the installers. To estimate the biodiversity project impacts, the under 12 will join the National Biodiversity Data Centre Pollinator Monitoring Programme to track our biodiversity improvements over the next XXX. The chairperson and treasurer will monitor the progress of all components of our project and will stay in regular contact with the Community Climate Action Officer. Okay, so after that, moving on to next, it's going to be the kind of project costs. So basically, it's looking for kind of like all the kind of project costs and how you kind of detail them out. Now, the one thing about for the larger scale projects, the projects between 50 to 100,000, we do advise to kind of put in a contingency budget of between 5 and 10%. So it kind of gives in case there's inflation in costs or it is unforeseen costs due to the project. That's what the department has recommended to us. So just here, there's an example of like the table of cost example, and it's just like solar panels. So it's the item, the supplier, the cost. So solar panels, the supplier is Solar Sky Kerry, and the cost are 28,000. So you just break down the project and the costs in that table. Okay. And as I was saying, you're going to have to upload quotes in the next section. So that once you put in the costs, upload the quotes. And what we're hoping, if at all possible, is 3 quotes are required. But if you're not able to get 3 quotes, get in contact with myself, and we'll see if there's any way around it. So sometimes it might not be possible to get 3 quotes, but especially for larger projects, 3 quotes would be required. And if there's any issues, just get in contact. Okay, so after you submit the quotes, the next question is necessity for grant funding. Please provide relevant detail outlining how you could go ahead, how you could not go ahead without the grant. Alternatively, provide us details outlining how the grant will enable you to undertake more work which your organisation would not be able to otherwise afford. So what we're trying to hear is, we need to know that the funding is provided is absolutely needed by your group, your current resources, current cost prohibitives, elements, etc. Please describe how this funding is needed to either make the project happen or to scale up or increase the climate impacts of existing projects. So kind of an example response to this would be, we want to scale up our previous circular economy project to reach more residents, but we need assistance with getting this project off the ground, which will then be financial self-sufficient within 18 months. So these kind of sample questions are only kind of like the start of it kind of give you kind of a flavor of what kind of what you should put in or what you can put in. Another example would be, we're a small community group with limited funds. Without the grant, we could not financially cover the cost of switching from a gas boiler to a heat pump. Our budgets barely cover the monthly bills. We've submitted the accounts to show this. So then that's another example for question. So the next question is on impacts. So what are the climate and environmental benefits of your project? How will they contribute to Ireland's climate and energy targets? So it must be clear that your project ties in with the programme's aims to shape and build low carbon sustainable communities. This section is where you say what your project is going to address in relation to climate change. Outline the actions will make your community specifically less carbon intensive and more sustainable at the end of the project. So you're very much in here. You're kind of the nuts and bolts of it, kind of like so. Make sure you're hitting as many of the 5 themes as possible. So the things that we're looking for is kind of like increase in energy efficiency, increase in renewable energy, reduce transport emissions, making an area more climate resilient, increase biodiversity, creating carbon sinks, reducing waste, food and others, and supporting the circular economy. Just transition for all, just transition for groups, areas, and sectors. So to give an example, what you could put in here. So our project looks at Team 1 community and energy. Our aim is to reduce the club's GA club's energy emissions by replacing our oil boiler with a heat pump and solar panel. This would eliminate this would eliminate. Sorry, this would eliminate the use of fossil fuels in our club, and 35% of our energy demands would be from renewable energy. Would be from renewable energy. This would contribute to Ireland's energy targets and efficiency and renewable energy targets. Okay, sorry, I got a bit tongue-tied there. And the next one is, our goal is to reduce travel emissions by increasing the number of people who regularly cycle for business or pleasure through more cycle parking and adult road cycling classes. Our main project has the potential to reduce emissions, air pollution, and encourage more active lifestyle, and making our place a nicer place to move around. And then you can go into further details. Okay, so perfect. So the next question after that is the innovation and scalability. So does your project deal with matters common to other communities and involving solutions that can be applied elsewhere? Can your project be scaled up and on its own or with other communities? So basically, we're just looking for how your project can be replicated in other communities across Ireland. So the things that we're looking for is ideally, projects should be innovative and scalable. Many communities can learn from each other, and the projects can be carried out from one group and scaled up and replicated in another community. Innovation can be clever ways to have solved problems, or ways to make a project especially effective of your location. So if it's rural or urban, the type of organization, so it's a residents association, sports clubs, sewing circles, or projects. So that's the way it's all about. Is there clever ways that these can be replicated? Think who could learn from what you do, what other locations could replicate it, and clearly state the lasting impacts of the project here. So an example of a kind of a sample answer to that would be our community reuse nappy scheme would be one of the few schemes in the country to tackle single-use disposable nappies in the community wide level, including low emissions laundry. Our project will have 50 families and a creche to cut out their nappy waste by 50% and to create a family-led circular economy. Our project is a blueprint for similar areas to replicate and scale up in their area. Is typical of many of the suburban and Irish neighbourhoods. So that kind of gives you a kind of a circular economy project and how that would be answered. And the next question is that our sports club is typical of many other sports clubs across the country, many of which have not yet low carbon spaces. Our project will be a great blueprint for these rural clubs to see how they can tackle the holistic approach to a low carbon and sustainable place. Our energy project will showcase how groups can improve their energy efficiency and decarbonise their floodlights, eternal lighting and heating. Our biodiversity planting could particularly show what they can do with their grounds while still maintaining it as a prime use as a sports ground. Working with the men's shed, we're going to use discarded pallets to make our rainwater planters, and it's an innovative way to reuse material in our community and engage with other groups in our local local climate action. The energy components will have a lasting impact and reduce emissions for years to come. Perfect. So there's just two simple answers to that question. And the next section is the value for money. So how does your project represent good value for money and effective use of resources? Outline how the project will cost adequately reflect the work being done. So what we're looking for here, so we need to know how the project will be good value for taxpayers' money, not necessarily the lowest cost, but what's the best balance between cost and results achieved. So we need to discuss how the project is going to get good value for its purchases, comment on the 3 quotes and how you saw it and what's in and how it's in line with the current market. If you're not including the contingency amount, if you have to conclude a contingency amount, which is bigger project should detail the amount. So here's an example of a kind of a sample response to that, or sample answer to that question. So our community is developing a tiny forest and bicycle parking on the grounds of our community centre. we've approached 4 contractors to cost the works and delivering the project, and they will have to come back with the following quotes: XYZ. After deliberation, it was decided that we go with X quote to deliver the project, and because of the following reasons, and then you would lay out your reasons there. We have set the contingency of 10% for the total project. So there's a sample answer to that question. So I think we're on to the last question. So it's governance. So what are the project management arrangements in place? So please provide us how you're going to manage the budget and the governance required. So we want to know how the group has experience in an appropriate management in place to handle the project. So want that back in the background. We want to make sure that the governance structure in place for evaluation committee is clear how your group will manage the program. For example, will you have a subcommittee looking after it? Who is responsible for the project implementations? Who's responsible for managing finances and liaison with KCC? And outline any previous projects that you have been successful. For example, sports, capital, town and village leader, general community grants, etc. So, like, we want to get a track record of any kind of project having been delivered by the community group. So, an example of that, so the XYZ community group has been in operation for the last 15 years, and in this time it's delivered the following projects. So you detail the projects. In the past, we have been successful in drawing down funding from the following funders, so detailed funders. The project has been managed by a 3-person subcommittee, which will report back to the management committee. And then X, Y, and Z will be the point of contact with Kerry County Council for the duration of the project. Further to this, and then you go into further detail if as you please. So that's an example in relation to the relation to the governance. And so that's all the questions in relation to. There's five questions in total that have to be answered, and the word count for small scale projects it's up to 150, and for large scale projects it's 300. So what we try to advise is stick within the word count, and just like 300 would be, it's a tight enough it's tight enough. 2 or 3 paragraphs would be roughly 300 words. Okay, so the next question is asking, will your project require pre-funding? So we have up to 25% available in certain circumstances. So the way that works is, if you state you can't deliver the project due to and you require pre-funding, you get the first 25%, you draw down that 25%, you deliver 25% of the project, and you show all the receipts that you've delivered that, and then you can draw down the next 25% once those receipts are produced to Kerry County Council. So you just answer yes or no in relation to pre-funding, and then you need a bit of background outlining why you need pre-funding. So the final section in section 2 is in relation to if you have any additional documents to upload. So if you have any kind of like energy master plans, biodiversity reports, tidy towns reports, community surveys, drawings of your plans, anything, this is the section where you upload them. So section 3 is the state aid questionnaire. So there's 3 questions. The first question is, does your funding confer an advantage to one or more undertakings? You either answer yes or no there. Does the funding to start or have the potential to start competition? You either answer yes or no there. And does the awarding of this funding have potential to affect trade in the EU? So generally, majority of these questions are more aimed at any of the organizations that are undertaking economic activity. And the big thing about it is we're trying to state aid, we're trying to make sure that it doesn't start competition in the EU. But it's very highly likely that you'll answer yes to all the 3 questions. If you answer no to any of these questions, you move on to the next section. And if you're unsure or you need further information in relation to the section 3, you can get in contact with me, and I'll be happy enough to talk you through the questions. but it is generally more aimed at groups that are involved in economic activity, that these 3 questions. So if you answer yes to all 3 of those questions, you just have to fill out a de minimis declaration form. So that's just basically detailing all the funds that you've received that are de minimis over the last 3 years. Now, you will be told at the time you applied for funding that if it was de minimis, you'll be informed of that. And the maximum you can go over a 3-year period it's now 300,000. So that's the threshold. So section 4 and second last section. So is where a project is delivered. So it's the authorization and statutory consent. So basically, what we want to find out here is, do you have all the planning requirements and consents, in place to deliver a project? Is all your governance in place? Is everything above board? And yeah, all you have to do is just click yes or no to that. So you click yes. And then finally is just the section 5 is the declaration section. So you just have to click yes to agree to a number of questions, and then you just sign and you just date it at the end. After that, you have submitted. You can submit the application. So just to kind of quickly, just briefly talk about the evaluation side of it. So there's 6 sections of the evaluation. So there's relevance and impact, innovation, scalability, value for money, and achievability, partnership, and governance agreement. Excuse me. So these are all the ones that are being covered in relation to it. So when you come to relevance and impacts, so what the basic for assessment is the project meets the objective of strand 1 of to shape and build a low carbon community, and can clearly demonstrate the impact of the project in contribute to Ireland's climate and energy targets. So then the next thing is innovation and scalability. So the project has practical innovation, and as approaches, it has a potential to be scaled up and replicated in other communities. Post funding, the project has a lasting impact. So then value for money. So the costs implied for the project are reasonable. They represent an effective use of resources and consummate with equality in nature activities to proposed. Realistic, specific, and relevant outputs and outcomes are identified with consumer-driven with the level of investment. So there's the first 3 sections, and then the next achievability. So is the organisation partnership have the appropriate expertise to deliver the proposed project? The proposal is clear and coherent and is deliverable within the time frame. Key milestones are identified with explanation of how these are monitored. So that's just going back, showing your achievability. And then partnership approach. Any partnership consortium and roles and responsibilities are clearly outlined, and partnership agreement is in place where applicable. The proposal demonstrates how key stakeholders have been involved in the planning and implementation of the project. And then finally, governance. So any necessary governance and financial management systems, controls, and processes are in place to meet with the requirements of the programme. Where applicable, evidence of tax compliance and registration and relevant bodies is supplied. Details of the track record in managing this funding is supplied. So the only difference between strand 1 and strand 1A is the cross-border partnership and the shared island relevance and impacts. So they're just the evaluation required for strand 1A. And if you want any further details in relation to that, just get in contact and I'll provide them. So just to kind of finish up now, so recommendations before completing your application. So be able to summarize your project in a few sentences, i.e. the who, where, what, when. You're explaining your project to someone, someone who may not know nothing about your project, so keep that in mind. Be clear and use plain English. We're not expecting heavy technical language and knowledge. And the word count is only meant as a guide. Ideally, if you can get your points across in a fewer words, then please use fewer words. Don't go over the word count. The closing date is, as I was saying earlier on, is the 6th of March at 5 p.m. And any questions, just get in contact. I'm here to help. So Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. And just stop there. Sorry, I'm going to just stop recording.